Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Grow Yours podcast, where we talk to coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs alike about what they do, who they help, and why they want to help them. And today I am thrilled to be joined by Lenora Edwards, who is a two-time TEDx speaker and is a coach on speech, language, and speaking in general. Super excited to have this conversation. And I mean, nobody's going to say it better than her because I'm not going to be able to communicate it as well. Lenora, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you are doing well. I'm
I,
super excited to be here.
yes, I'm very excited for everybody to hear you speak in particular. I think everybody's going to really, really enjoy this.
Awesome.
So, to get you introduced, let's talk a little bit about your career journey, where you started, how you got into speaking, when you realized you were going to be a speaker. I want to hear the whole thing, and so
The
does
whole
everybody else.
thing. Oh my. When I started to become a speaker, it was not intentional. I actually have a degree in speech language pathology, and that's how I started to really understand the mechanics of speech and language development and paying attention to how people are speaking. But truth be told, I absolutely hated public speaking to the point that I was in graduate school and I had two friends that would sit in the back of the classroom and they would hold up a sign that said, "Slow down," because I would talk a mile a minute just to get out of being in front of the room. So I took a very roundabout way to public speaking, to say the least.
That's pretty ironic to considering where you are now.
Very
So,
much so.
when you started your career, that was in speech language pathology, right?
Mhm. Yes.
When did you ultimately decide? Well, let's clarify for everybody. Are you still doing that?
I do still have my degree in speech pathology, but it is a very microcosm of what I do in my life. I do lots of different things. And truthfully, I call myself a performance coach or a performance specialist because I understand the mechanics of what people are truly doing and how they're communicating inside their head. And that really is the essence of everything, how you communicate to yourself and then how you communicate externally to the entire world as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a person just navigating this world is so incredibly important. And there is not enough emphasis on how to properly talk to yourself. And there's a ton of emphasis on how to have more confidence and charisma. But if you don't have the internal game locked in, you're not going to have the external game locked in as much as you could.
It's funny because I just feel like that has nothing to do with speech language
Hmm.
pathology. So, what was the moment in your career, or I like to ask everybody like, the tipping point, that one pivotal moment where you realized that there was more to what you were doing and you wanted to expand into everything you just said, charisma, internal
Yeah.
speech, all those things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I ended up getting into speaking and doing a TEDx and being a keynote speaker, I would say somehow I backed my way into it, if that's a helpful thought on the process. For me, very specifically, my journey actually started because I had an eating disorder. And my eating disorder had started well over 2 decades ago, and it had become so out of control by the time that I finally started to reach out for help. That became a transformative experience in my life, to say the least. So in my TEDx is one of the TEDx's that I did is titled How to Stop the Negative Voices in Your Head. And when I was in the dentist chair, I talk about it in my TEDx. When I was in the TEDx, when I was in the dentist chair, I came to a moment where it said, you know what, Lenora, there's something you don't know yet because I had been working on myself. I had been listening to everything under the YouTube sun on positive thinking, on how to help yourself, on how to be the creator of your life, how to be an entrepreneur, how to do all these things. I'd listened to it all. I could have literally had a PhD in YouTube had and personal growth and development had that been a thing. And when I finally started to reach out for help for my eating disorder, my entire world changed. So how does that make any sense? The inner game that I had, the inner dialogue on how I was communicating to myself on a regular basis was so atrocious that we often say, we talk to ourselves in the most harsh way possible. We would never talk to our best friend this way. We would never talk to somebody that we love this way. But we have no problem talking to ourselves this way, telling ourselves things like we're not enough or we can't get it done or why'd you say that stupid comment? We say these things on autopilot in our head. While I was working with my coach, my inner game started to shift, my inner dialogue, how I communicated with myself started to shift. And that's where the foundation was. So if you go into a meeting or if you go into working with a client or taking on a new prospect, and the background dialogue that you have going on is, why is this person going to work with me? I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be charging this much. I can't do that. Can I really deliver on this? All this imposter syndrome stuff, that's where the work is. You have to change that inner game so that you can enter those meetings and say, hey, I charge $25,000 to work with me. If you want to work with me, great. Or this is the amount of investment. We transfer $6 million in deals. You need that inner game, that inner charisma, that inner dialogue to show up more completely, more fully. And that's how I ended up backing my way into this because I was able to shift my inner game. And when I realized how important it is to communicate with yourself in a way that's effective, my entire life changed.
So, inner charisma, is that something that could be taught?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting.
So think
So,
about, go ahead.
oh, no, actually, go ahead. Go ahead. Expand on that first, and then I'll maybe my question will be answered.
So, what's a common phrase that you might hear your clients say or that you might have thought over time? A common, what you might call a self limiting belief or something that is, man, why does that thought keep showing up in my head? Do you have them?
For me personally, a lot of the times the people I speak to are a lot older than me,
Yeah.
so I think they might like. I guess the Gen Z term that I'll use for you is
Yeah.
they'll little bro me,
Yeah. Or
and
they'll be like, what do you know? And they'll
yeah,
look at
yeah,
you.
yeah,
For sure.
and I'll sit there and I'll be like, well, I do know a lot, but now you have me second guessing myself about what I know,
Absolutely.
even though what I told you is just correct, and now I don't know how to reiterate that. Like that's something I
Absolutely.
definitely struggle with.
Absolutely. And so that's that autopilot inner dialogue that we all carry. We carry it because we're humans and we've had these life experiences that taught us to question this or taught us to interpret this meaning about ourselves. So whether you had seen it in the culture or somebody had said to you on repeat as you're growing up, what do you know? You're so much younger. Things that we normally hear as we're growing up. Those become echoes in our head. They're quite literally recordings. And if you think all the way back and you go, okay, who taught me this?
My
When did
mom,
I decide this? There you go.
yeah, for sure, because it
There
was
you
always
go.
like, "You're a kid, you don't know what you're talking about, be quiet." Like,
There you go.
I got that all the time, and I never really thought about it until just now.
There you go. Perfect example. So now, as you're noticing that thought and you have the you of today, this version of you that steps in and says, we don't need this thought anymore. This isn't helping us. Thank you, mom, for doing the best that you could to teach me at that time. But this thought, I'm not a kid anymore. Look at all that I've experienced. Look at all that I've created. Look at all that. Look at my business. Look at all the experiences that I've had. I know so much more now. This doesn't apply. So then, do you even need that thought anymore?
No, probably I mean, no, definitely not, I don't.
No, it doesn't serve you, it doesn't help you. So, helping people identify those thoughts, and quite literally, it's a thought pattern, it's an autopilot. It came up immediately and you went right back to the memory. That happens because of our basic human design that we can't not experience that. All it is just information. And it's your brain going, hey, this scent came up at one point in our life. And now you get to communicate to the rest of your body going, oh, that was back then. I don't need this anymore. I've gotten stronger. I know a lot more now. And then from that standpoint, your entire world changes. So that when you show up and you say to your clients who are older than you, what you offer and you quite literally feel it resonate because you don't feel that little voice in the background anymore. You now hear, oh, yeah, I have done that. Yeah, I have gotten this far. Yeah, I have created that much money. I have created this success for my clients. It's a completely different world.
So, typically, how far in life are you seeing these negative inner thoughts affecting people? Like, I'm fairly young, right? So I
Hmm.
always think like, I'll get used to this because there is things that early on in the business that I felt that I no longer feel anymore because
There you
I've
go.
figured out how to deal with them.
Yeah,
But I'm sure you said you've worked with like executives and people
very
at pretty
much
high
so.
places.
Very much so.
So, like, does this happen throughout your entire life and it's something that you're constantly dealing with? Or is it like you hit a point and you're like, all right, I don't have to deal with this anymore?
It's both. They're autopilot thoughts that you don't, they just run in the background and you sometimes notice them or you sometimes don't notice them. That is my specialty, is helping people notice these things that are holding them back and keeping them stuck. So yes, I work with CEOs and COs and executives of all sorts, high achievers, high performers, athletes, whichever, whomever, because their pattern is something's missing. I know something's missing. I know I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but I know something's missing. And that's enough. Because what I do is I hear it in their language. And I'll ask them certain questions along the way, going just as I did. Oh, well, who said that? And you go, oh, my mom. It's an echo. It's a recording that is quite literally on in the background on autopilot. And you get so used to it that you don't even notice it until you work with someone like me. And then as we're talking about things, you start to notice, oh, hey, that's different. Oh, I don't have that feeling anymore. It's because we quite literally went back and we closed the loop. So it no longer has to keep skipping and going over itself again. You got the information. You don't need the discomfort. You don't need it anymore. You have the lesson. So when I work with people, and sometimes it's around money, sometimes it's around sex, sometimes it's around food, it really just depends on where they are. And they find themselves repeating the same pattern and they go, I've done the mindset stuff. I've looked at the books, I've looked at the numbers, I've done this, I've tried that, I've done this. And they come to the point of going, I don't know what it is, but it's something. That's usually how people end up working with me because they've tried all that stuff and it doesn't work. So, short of looking up witch doctor in the yellow pages, that's how people find me, as a performance piece. There's something else going on. So, when it comes to communication, let's say you sit down in the board meeting and you find yourself not closing the deals or you're not getting with clients, it's okay. What else is going on? If you've polished your speech and you know your numbers, there's a misalignment, for lack of a better word. Something else is going on. That's what I do. I help quite literally find that misalignment so that the entire thing comes back into alignment.
All right. So I'm not trying to give away your secrets or anything, but
You're good. So they're not going,
what,
you can have
what,
them all.
what's an example of an exercise that you would do with these people in order to combat these loops or well, I guess it's your subconscious, right? Your subconscious thoughts?
Subconscious rewiring or subconscious reprogramming. And sometimes, people will put things online and you'll hear, listen to this for 30 minutes a day. And some people can get changes that way. My specialty is, yes, I do group coaching and I do group certifications. My specialty, and the reason that I consider it my specialty is because it's what helped me the most, is working one on one. When you have rapport, whether it's with me or it's with another coach or another therapist, whatever it is, when you have one on one interaction and deep rapport, that trust that I can share this with this person and they're not going to judge me for it, that's where the most life altering changes take place. Because what quite literally happens when people work with me, I tend to be what most would consider a safe person, as in not a safe space, as in like what this culture is trying to show us and all that type of information, but safe as in people share their vulnerabilities with me because there is no judgment when people work with me. And in that, they do have these very deep insecurities that come up, or these very heartbreaking things that they don't share with people unless they work with someone like me. Because what happens is the subconscious quite literally goes, it's safe enough to move this now. And when you have that nervous system that has been wired for safety and wired to survive can actually breathe and start to move. And we get the stuff out. We get what we don't need anymore. We get it out of their nervous system. And then their entire life changes because, depending on your school of thought, ultimately, we are creating our life. We are experiencing our life. And we want to become certain things. It's because that is in alignment with us. But when we're stuck spinning our wheels for years on end, you're banging your head against the wall. You're going, what is wrong here? That's what's wrong. There's a misalignment. There's something going on in the subconscious that is holding you back for your own safety. Once we get rid of that, take off like a rocket.
So you're telling me just by people having these conversations with you,
Yes.
it fixes it?
Yes. Very
That
much
seems
so.
so simple.
It is that simple. We make it so much more complex because we're taught to make it so much more complex.
So there's nothing like specific that you do. You're not like, hey, like here's a set of questions, like answer this set of questions. We'll dive into these after. Like it almost sounds like therapy, to be honest.
It's a different kind of experience. And in therapy, what can sometimes happen is you talk about the problem again and again and again and again and again and again. We know what the problem is. We don't need to keep talking about it. We do need to let go of it. And when we can let go of it in a way that truly registers on the nervous system level, you get that change. And it happens naturally, normally, effortlessly. It simply is the rapport that you are in with some people. Did you ever have a really deep, satisfying conversation with somebody that, whether it was a best friend or somebody you just met, and they leave this mark on you and you're like, wow, that was incredible. Have you ever
Very
experienced that?
rarely, but yeah. And
Very
it feels
rarely.
like it almost feels like you're floating for a couple minutes afterwards. Like
Exactly.
everything's empty. Not empty in a bad way though. Light, I guess.
Light, light, everything's light. It's because you got the change that you needed. You didn't necessarily have to go to a therapist or go to a doctor to get that, but you got it. And ultimately, the way that I see the world is as long as people get the outcome that they want, that's all that matters. So whether it's with me or whether they work with somebody else or whether they, whatever pattern they want or whatever path they want to follow, as long as it's right and true for them, that's the only thing that matters because what's going to get them to that point that they want to be at, that's the most important.
Reality's in the eye of the beholder.
Very much so.
Yeah,
Perceiver.
that's something I always preach, and then people are like, "You're crazy. There's reality and there's not reality." I'm like, "But everybody has their own." Like, that's why different sides of the political spectrum exist. That's why all these things happen, all these wars happen in the world because everybody's like, I don't want to get too political, but
Yeah.
like the term terrorism, right? Like that's kind of relative. Obviously, it's not like there's terrorists and there's not terrorists, but to some people, this person is considered one, and to
Hmm.
others, like they're a hero. And
Very much so.
I try to explain that to people, and they're like, "You're nuts."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm not nuts. I think I'm actually just thinking about this very logically
Yeah. The way I
versus
like, oh, go ahead.
emotionally." Yeah,
The way I like to say it is you are the perceiver of your experience. So
right,
if you think about your third birthday, your parents were probably there. There were other kids there. Your experience of your third birthday was very different than their experience of your third birthday.
correct.
Everybody is perceiving that experience through their own lenses, through their own filters.
So when people are able to, I guess they're like clearing up that lens, right? Clearing up that filter,
Hmm.
removing the outside smudges or input that's coming from these other people, right? So once they do that, how do you see their communication improve?
Significantly. Or do you want to say drastically or significantly? So it depends on so when we're talking about communication, if we're going to use a very specific example, and for some reason, Mad Men is just the one that's coming to my brain right now.
Okay.
You're seeing that person in a boardroom and he's very charismatic and he's very precise. And then you try and walk into a boardroom and you try to deliver the same lines. There's quite literally a difference. It doesn't feel or look like it did on TV. And now you're having the experience. How do you show up more completely? You absolutely, and I would absolutely encourage people to practice their charisma skills, to practice their speaking skills, because it's very important to show that you are an effective communicator. For example, if I asked you about your business, you tell me all sorts of things about your business.
I wouldn't
And
shut
if
up.
and if they said, "Okay, Lenora, tell me about his business," I go, I wouldn't have the same knowledge. I would have to practice it. So absolutely, those skills are important. When we're talking about something that is so precious to me, for example, my business is incredibly precious to me. It is something I think about, I look at, I spend time with on a regular basis. When people ask me about it, at one point earlier in my career, earlier in my time, when I started to say, I want to be a coach, it sounded quite literally more like this. I want to be a coach. I want to help people. And you can hear that highness in my voice, almost like a little girl speaking up. And you can hear in somebody's voice their insecurities. Not everybody can detect it, but it's something that I specifically listen for. How congruent is that nervous system? How congruent is that person with what they're sharing? Now, when I say I'm a performance specialist, I help people rewire the patterns that are holding them back and keeping them stuck. It's very different than I want to help people and I want to coach them. You hear the difference. You hear the difference also not just in the highness of my voice, but you hear the resonance in my chest. And in that, it gets communicated differently to your nervous system, not just through me, but to you, to the point that your brain goes, "Oh, this person knows what they're talking about." And that's a huge difference because you want to communicate your awareness, your presence, your commitment to your business and to the clients that you work with, because that's how businesses grow.
This may sound off topic, but I'm going to loop it back in. Do
Yep.
you like hearing yourself on camera?
Do I like hearing myself on camera? I do appreciate it much, much more than I used to. And I will tell you the very specific moment that I had worked with a coach and I had said, I don't like the sound of my voice. And they pointed out all the qualities of my voice that they had enjoyed and that people pay attention to. And then a week later, I got laryngitis. And as a speech pathologist, you can imagine, hmm, that probably doesn't help her very much. It took my voice 3 weeks to fully recover. And for me, at that point in time, the laryngitis that I experienced went from my current voice to the point that my husband would come. He couldn't be across the room from me. He literally had to be next to me. And as a speech pathologist, what happens is when you get laryngitis, your vocal cords inflame. And normally, as we talk, our vocal cords are coming together and they're touching, they're vibrating really quickly. And you got a nice seal because you can hear the quality of the voice. When you have laryngitis, they're inflamed and they don't necessarily meet. So you hear a lot of air going through. And when I had laryngitis and I couldn't record anything, I couldn't speak to anybody, and I couldn't be that person that I liked showing up as, I was watching recordings of myself going, my gosh, I really miss my voice. And that changed my perception of my voice. So, in case anybody's trying to figure out if they like their voice or not, notice what you do like about it. Notice what you might want to consider changing about it. And then imagine yourself not having a voice. And you will truly appreciate your voice much, much more.
The reason I ask is because I know we talked about this guy last time, and I'm gonna mispronounce his name, which I'm not happy about, but Vin Jiang
Young, yeah.
Yang,
Mhm.
he talks about if you hate the way that you sound on video, it's probably because you're not truly speaking the way that you have the ability to speak.
It's probably very
So
true.
I'm wondering when people are trying to improve that, do you recommend literally speaking into a camera, recording it, and then listening to themselves and taking notes on what you like, what you don't like, and then reiterating it and do it over and over and over again? Is that like an
Mhm.
actual thing that people should do?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and he is a phenomenal speaker and a phenomenal presenter, and what I love about him is that he will share his vulnerabilities. He will share with you a keynote that he said, I charge this much, and he showed up and he couldn't deliver the keynote the way that he wanted. He shares these experiences in his life where he made the errors and he made the mistakes, and where most people would think, oh my God, I don't want anybody to know about that. He goes, no, this is a great thing. Look what I learned. I made the same mistakes. You're not bad. You're not wrong. You're not messed up. You're just untrained. And we get to help get you where you want to go. That's an amazing piece of excitement that he loves to share. And that's what I think is so beautiful about him. He shares these difficulties that he has, or that he had, excuse me, and then will show you the path on how to have the same success. And one very specifically, when he's talking about presenting. So let's say you're going to be in a boardroom, or you're going to be on a meeting, or you're going to be on stage. He will say to record it. Notice it with the sound as you're watching yourself. Notice it without the sound as you're watching yourself. Then just notice it with only the sound and write down what you like. Write down what you notice. Write down what you're not liking. And it can be really, really helpful because, for example, if I had shared something with you and I said, I absolutely love the sound of your voice. I think it's great. I think you have a fantastic voice and a fantastic way of showing up on camera. And you go, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. What had just transpired is I gave you a gift and you took that gift and you go, well, thanks. And you put it down on the floor in front of you rather than being able to truly receive that gift. And that's something really important because if you can't receive compliments, how else are you going to receive from, whether you want to call it the universe, God, clients, whatever it is? How else are you going to receive money? How you receive is truly important. So now, going back to our voice, what we like, what we don't like about it, that's another reason as to why you want to notice your gifts. And you also want to notice areas that we can improve upon. You're not quite literally stuck with the voice that you have. You have a voice. How you get to show up, how you get to deliver it and share it with the world is entirely up to you. It is your right and your responsibility to craft it in such a way that feels good to you.
So, I mean, you just hypnotized me for a second, the way that you were just speaking. But so you realize that you have these skills, right? You have this understanding of how things work. Who was like, how did you turn that into a business? Was there a person who approached you and was like, hey, like, can you teach this to me? Or did you say, let me go tell people that I can teach this to them? And then that turned into the business. Like, what was the start of the coaching?
The start of the coaching was truly a moment where I had literally felt my nervous system have this complete release of something that was holding me back. So, when you have an eating disorder, it is not something where it's on the side, it consumes your every waking moment. It was something that dominated my life. And it wasn't, oh, I thought about it once this hour. No, this was a majority of the thoughts in my head. And in getting help, in spending time with the coach and the practitioner that I was working with at the time, it started to move and it started to have literally more clarity. I could start thinking about other things in my life. And when I finally had this moment during coaching or during the time that we were together, It was so powerful that it literally was, you need to do this with your life, Lenora. And my entire that I boom, done, accepted. And from that, everything else continued to unfold. So, for example, at one point, we were working on how I wanted to speak. And my coach, and this is just in a private session, my coach had said, all I want you to do is walk through this process with me. And they had wanted me to say something. They had me in a process where I was thinking about being on stage. And all I had to say was, hi, my name is Lenora, and I have important things to share. And I could not do it. It took about an hour for me to just say this one sentence with this person. And you're thinking, are you kidding me? Did that really happen? And no, it really did happen just like that. And finally, as I started to move through that, as I started to move away from my fear that was holding me back and keeping me stuck, which was, I can't speak in front of people, I started to get stronger and I started to get better. And then I got this idea of, I want to do a TEDx. And this was such a quiet voice in the background that I did not tell my coach for about 6 months. And then I had ended up telling them, I think in a video of like the next day of how I was doing after our call. And I told them what I didn't want to tell them during our call. And then 8 months later, I stood on a TEDx stage and gave my entire speech in a way that felt very, very natural for me. It was how I wanted to share at the time. So that's why I say working one on one is so extraordinarily powerful, because I could have taken 1,000 speaking courses and not been able to move through that fear that was holding me back, keeping me stuck. Because the background fear that I had wasn't, I can't say the sentence. The background fear was, what are people going to think of me?
When you say the sentence.
What are people going to think of me?
Oh, just
Period.
generally.
Just generally. That's a whole lot of judgment going off in somebody's head. What are people going to think of me? And when you have that kind of internal panic, internal criticism, your nervous system will hold you down and prevent you from saying things, because that is the design. Our subconscious is designed to protect us. And even though it's not a lion, to the reptile part of our brain, it's a saber-toothed tiger and you're going to die. That's all the brain can communicate, can quite literally communicate through your nervous system. And until you finally get that aha moment of, oh, right, I'm not going to die. Oh, right, this isn't a saber-toothed tiger. Once you get that, your nervous system quite literally goes, and it can breathe again. And it comes out of fight and flight.
So, I mean, that kind of answered my question, but so then what? Somebody heard you speak on stage at the TEDx and they were
Oh,
like, hey, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was a long way around that question.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
yeah.
apologize.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because everything you said was valuable. So I don't really mind.
That was a very long way around it. I apologize. Thank you for reminding me of the question. People started coming up to me and saying, how are you doing that? What are you doing? I want to learn from you. So I do teach TEDx coaching, but I also teach how to quite literally just speak at a BNI meeting. And speaking at a BNI meeting, for some people, that is terrifying because they think speaking in public can be quite literally equivalent to death. We've seen the statistics, we know of all sorts. In a BNI meeting, you speak for 60 to 90 seconds, or in a networking meeting. And these are small business owners who want to do good things in the world, who want to grow their business. And if you can't speak, it really does hold you back and keep you stuck. Then I have people who are moving millions of dollars across the boardroom. And when they're asked to present, they're sweating, they're stuttering, they're quite literally, their entire nervous system is in panic and they can't maneuver the situation. That's a problem. And the only reason it's a problem is because they don't know it's okay and that they'll be okay. When we can get their nervous system to register, so completely safe. When we get their subconscious to go, oh, I don't have to pass out. This is a great thing. Their entire life changes. and they get to be more completely who they want to be in this world. I had a physician once, he could not do his rounds in the critical area part of the hospital. So they do rounds every day, and the physicians do rounds in probably among 10 other physicians and an attending, and they could not get through it. And because they couldn't get through it, they looked incompetent. That's a big deal when you're a physician. You don't want to show up to your patients appearing as if you don't know what you're talking about. You don't want to show up to boards appearing as though you don't know what you're talking about. You want to be able to communicate. That's why it's so important.
So you've you did that initial TED talk. People were like, "Hey, I want you to help me." And has that just kind of ripple effect out into the world where more and more people are contacting you through referrals and other speaking engagements?
Very much so. So, for as much as social media would say, oh, be on social media, people need to follow you, people need to see who you are. I think maybe one person from social media has contacted me, but every connection that I make is because of meeting people, because of, hey, I heard you speak, or hey, I saw your TEDx and I got to somebody knew you through somebody else. And it's all very, very people. It's very, very personal, which is very, very characteristic of me. I tend to resonate more with people, and that's a great thing. And it's something that's very precious to me. I want people to know they're not alone. I share openly because I want people to know they're not broken, they're not screwed up, they weren't given this information before. Neither was I. But it's entirely possible to improve any area of you that you want to improve upon. Any area. And people think, oh, well, they have this, they have that. I don't have this, I don't have that. No, it's none of it. You want that change? You get it. Period.
Okay. I think that is a great note for us to wrap things up on. One final question for those business owners that are listening here that now recognize the need to communicate better and spark the charisma within. What would you say is the first step for them to do so?
Write down what's important to them about doing it. When you write down what's important to you and what will happen if you don't improve upon this, or your fear of what will happen if you don't improve upon this, write it down. Don't just say it out loud. Don't just put it in your phone. Pen to paper. Write it down. See it and recognize what's important to you. Recognize your own fear and then take the next step. Whatever that looks like for you, then take the next step.
All right. This was awesome. I had a really, really great time. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for
Before
having me.
before we hang it all up, do you want to tell everybody where they could find you online, website, LinkedIn? What do you got?
The best place to reach me would be on my website at driventobebetter.com.
All right, awesome. Everybody, this has been the Grow Yours podcast. Lenora, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.